Evening.
Hello.
Hello there. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you good.
All right. I thought I was on mute.
Yeah, I found out I was on mute. I was talking to you a second ago, and it's like, nope, you can't hear me. I'm on mute.
Yeah, I can hear you.
That's good.
What time is the meeting starting?
4 o'clock our time in about 3 minutes.
All right. Okay. It's just that I'm in the UK.
Right. Which means it's pretty late your time, isn't it?
Yeah. At 8 o'clock.
Ooh. Hi, Cheryl.
Hi.
Hello, Cheryl.
Hello.
Hi, Bill and Abby. I know you guys got on mute, but there. Hi, Bill.
Hey, how's it going, Ben?
Going pretty good. Getting adjusted to the new job.
Yeah, you started like 2 weeks ago, was it?
Yeah, about 150 hours in the first 2 weeks.
That's a lot.
It's 15-hour work days, so
Wow.
Okay, how many days a week are you doing?
it's a 2-2-3, but they have a whole bunch of days. Like I have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday this week, then Thursday, Friday off, then work Saturday, Sunday, like that. But you do a lot of extra days when you're doing the training. But most of it's just sitting, hanging around the kids because I'm work at a high school with kids with behavioral issues, and it's like a 24/7 care.
Okay.
Year-round school. The kids are here on a 6-month program.
Okay. How'd you find that?
My ex-girlfriend I went to high school with came here, so she was back here in the 90s.
Okay.
And it helped her out. Then it's a Christian-based organization, and they provide living on campus. So like my rent's free once they get a open room here for me.
Well, that'll be nice.
Right?
How far is that from your hometown?
20 minutes.
Oh, sweet.
So like, yeah, but the only thing is my insurance won't cover in Michigan right now, so I had to switch prosthesis.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
I went back with a Turnbow Prosthetics, which was where I was before I came to Bremer.
Okay.
And he was taught by I can't remember his name. Bremer taught him to be a prosthesis, so he worked with the guy Scott, and Nate bought the business from.
Oh, nice.
He referred me to Bremer because he was trained by me. Didn't know Bremer sold yet, and then I met Scott, which you guys are life changers. I mean, Bremer Prosthetics made my life what it is.
Well, that's what we love to hear.
Right.
Speaking of Bremer, they just joined us.
All right.
Everybody.
Hello.
Good
Hi.
to see some familiar faces again. So we'll go through, sorry, we're getting our last little bit set up here. But I'm Abby Sinchezin. I'm a certified prosthetist orthotist, and I work at Bremer Prosthetics in Flint.
And I'm Cassie. I'm an orthotist prosthetist, and I work at Bot Prosthetics in Brighton.
And then we have Casey joining us today.
I'm a prosthetic technician for Saginaw and Flint, Lansing.
So we just kind of wanted to, again, bring everybody together and have a conversation. And we thought Casey would offer a different perspective too. A little bit behind the scenes, and we'll go through and have everybody kind of introduce themselves quickly again of your name, where you're from, your amputation, level of amputation. And if you have any questions, we're happy to just kind of open it up to a discussion and see how we can help each other. So Ben, do you want to kick us off?
Sure, no problem. My name's Ben. I became an amputee back in 2016, left below knee amputee. I met Bremer Prosthetics about 2019 when I moved up to Michigan. Sadly, my journey led me back down to Indiana, and I had to temporarily leave the Bremer family. And I'm currently seeing Turnbow Prosthetics out of Columbia City. And I mean, I love this group. I love this, everything about Bremer. I'm glad to see you all again.
Somebody that's a little bit more local. Just because when you have care that's a couple 100 miles away, it's a little bit hard to have that managed all the time between work.
Right. So, and Kent Turnbow, just like Scott and Casey, he's also a below the knee amputee, or he's a right leg below the knee amputee. So I get that familiarity like I did with Bremer Prosthetics.
Awesome. Cheryl, can we have you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Cheryl, and I'm left above the knee amputee. Lost my leg in 2017. Next month will be 7 years. And I walk aided with a walker. I have I finally got a, it's not a manual knee, it's a computer knee, just about a year ago. So I'm still getting used to that. I love it. I can't believe I was in a manual knee for 6 years, but yeah, I'm doing okay. I think I've gone as far as I can actually, because my sound leg is bad. So walking with a walker, I think, is probably the best I could hope for. I'm okay with that. I can live with that. At least I can get to where I need to, and I can go up and down stairs when I need to now. So it's all good.
Since your amputation,
What's that?
have you been in physical therapy?
Immediately following the amputation, I was hit by a drunk driver and lost my leg. I went from the hospital stay of about 8 or 10 days directly to rehabilitation. So I had rehabilitation before I had a prosthetic limb. And I learned basically how to walk with the walker with my one leg, and how to use a transfer board, things like that. But since I had my prosthetic leg, no, I haven't had physical therapy.
So that would be something to look into and talk with your doctor about, but especially you said you had a microprocessor knee within the last year. That working with physical therapy, they can help you really build that balance, stability, focus on some gait training, to help you get the most out of your prosthesis and out of those components. So they can work on some cueing, to help you feel a little bit more confident and continue to see some progression can make a big, big difference.
Okay.
So does anybody else want to share kind of their experience with physical therapy after their amputation? Yeah, Mary. Oh, you're muted. There we
Got
go.
it. Sorry. I had a great experience with physical therapy. It wasn't until 2 years after my amputation and I received my prosthetic that they told me that physical therapy would actually help. And I happened to have a severe contraction after the surgery. And I had a spider bite that caused me to be above knee amputation. And physical therapy gave me back the balance and the core strength that I needed. I was a little bit fearful in the beginning, and physical therapy was a godsend to me.
Awesome. Glad to hear you had such a good experience, because it does it of focusing on that core strength and what muscles to fire and how to control the prosthesis, of just helping to kind of stretch things out, reducing that contracture over time. And really, I talk a lot with patients about trusting the prosthesis, and that takes time to know that you can put your weight through something and it is going to support you and you're not going to fall. And that's something that it takes a long time of trying to, whether you're trying to progress from a walker to a cane, just ambulatory, like getting used to walking on a prosthesis immediately after surgery, of just knowing that, okay, if I put my weight through this, I am trusting this thing to hold me up and not let me fall. And coming across some of those issues, as it takes a good almost 2 years for people to fully trust their prosthesis of, okay, I'm getting a little bit more comfortable. I know I can put my weight through this and I know that I'm not going to fall. I have one of my patients I'm working with now is a 72-year-old male that had a couple of falls before his amputation. And now, like 3 months after being fit with a prosthesis, he's like, I'm still really scared about falling. I'm like, you're at a point where that's a healthy fear of, you're a couple of months out, you're going to be hesitant, but over time of just developing that trust of, you start to become a little bit more reliant on the prosthesis, and it's something that takes time.
Yeah, definitely. And I did find the one important thing that for me was that the first physical therapy place that I went to was not a neurophysical therapy. So I went to a neurophysical therapy about a year and a half after that. And they're the ones that really, really worked with me. The previous one was just, you go in, put a hot pack and turn over and do some exercise, and that's it, you're gone. This one was totally different. You threw a ball. My daughter was having a baby at the time. They put a medicine ball in my hand, in my arms, make believe it was the baby, and I walked with it. So it made a big difference what physical therapy I did.
So was that something that you found yourself advocating for, or was it you went back to your doctor and it was a conversation? How did you make the change between those two physical therapy places?
I researched. I always do a lot of research. That's how I found you guys. I research constantly. I research knees and I research physical therapies and different. I now have a great doctor who takes care of me. Once I go to the prosthetist, I go to him. He checks that. If there's a change, I go back to the prosthetist. And if I need to, I'll do like maybe once a week for maybe 3 weeks back in PT until I'm good with it and move on. But I think it's a continual process. It never ends. So if you're with people and everybody communicates well together, which I think is the key factor, including the patient, I hate to say patient, but basically, if you don't communicate and advocate for yourself, it's never going to work. You can't be afraid to say, no, this isn't working, or this hurts, or no. They get to know you, they get to learn about you, and you get to learn about them. And the communication is everything.
That's a really good point. We all try to have a good relationship with the physical therapists in our area, and we always have certain ones that we recommend to patients. But if you have a good doctor, a good prosthetist, and a good physical therapist, you're going to be doing better off than the patients that are struggling in one of those areas. So.
Yeah, 1000%. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. And then Cheryl, the other Cheryl here, if we could have you introduce yourself. And go ahead and unmute your mic too. Oh, you're still muted.
I'm sorry.
Okay, there it goes.
There we go.
Okay, hi, I'm Cheryl. I live in Orlando, Florida, and I am a left below the knee. It'll be 22 years in June for me. And I recently, back at the beginning of December, I just had weight loss surgery. I had the gastric sleeve done, and that was like the best thing I could have done for myself. I'm losing, and I've already lost 54 pounds, and just totally feel so much healthier with starting to get the weight up. And I don't walk with any. I do use the scooter when I walk my dog. Other than that, I walk freely. I don't use a cane or anything anymore. But again, it's been a long, 22 years. So it's been a long time for me. Now I do need a new prosthetic though, because everything's too big on me.
Sure, that's a big change.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, I have a long ways to go, but it's all positive though since I had that surgery. Just being able to walk better. Because I actually ended up starting to use a walker prior to having the surgery. My right knee, I need a knee replacement. So that's my obstacle right now. It's just the knee is shot, but I really don't want to have the surgery. Every time I have surgeries like that, I end up with complications. So I'm trying
infection, like a history of infection with surgeries.
Yep, I end up getting infections, and it just always turns out to be a disaster. That's how I lost my leg. It started as a shattered ankle and turned into osteomyelitis. I had MRSA. I long-term IV antibiotics. They put a med port in. They tried multiple salvage surgeries, and nothing worked. And then finally, once the bone got infected, then they did. But that time span for me was 7 years. I went through 7 years of ear health before they amputated.
So is there anybody else here that kind of had like some limb salvage procedure that they want to kind of that decision and what that process, you want to share a little bit of your story?
I was crushed.
Wait 1 second. I gotta get back in. The lawn service is out here, otherwise I won't. Well, I thought they were done, but they're not.
Yep. Yeah, I was crushed in an industrial accident, and after 14 surgeries of trying to save my leg, I told them to amputate it because I was already having troubles in my back and my hips, and I knew in 10 years I wouldn't be walking. So 12 years later, it's been a much better decision for me than had I kept my limb.
I had 15 surgeries over a 2-year span before I did the amputation, and best choice I ever made.
So maybe Ben and Casey, can you guys talk a little bit about mobility, like through the limb salvage surgeries versus the choice to amputate? and what your mobility looked like after that.
I crushed every bone in my foot and ankle, and then it all had to heal basically into one mass of bone, and then had surgeries, moving bone, external fixators. And so I walked on the side of my foot with crutches and a cane for over 2 years. And then once I got my leg amputated, and after physical therapy, a lot of physical therapy, I was able to walk. And now most people have no clue that I have a prosthetic limb, including Cassie.
I just found out last week.
Yep.
With
So,
mine,
it was a better choice than keeping my limb.
With mine, because I had the external fixator on for 2 years, I developed drop foot. And like, even with the bone not healing, they were going to have to do like pump plates, screws, and rod, all that kind of stuff in my leg, and then also do Achilles tendon surgery. It's like, oh, you'll probably never walk or normal again. I was like, would amputation be a better choice? And he's like, yeah, but we don't like to talk about amputation. I was like, well, I'm the one bringing it up. And I mean, I even said, well, like, prostheses have come so far now. I mean, it would be a more normal one. He's like, yeah, it would. And it's like, okay, let's get it done. And then luckily, I was in Indiana and I met Kent Turnbow, who, when he came in and saw me in a hospital, he was a below the knee amputee. I was like, okay, I don't need to see anybody else. I went with him. Then when I moved to Michigan, he referred me to Bremer because he was trained by Bremer. And then when I went to Bremer and Saginaw and found out, oh, he sold it, but Scott came walking out. Again, being an amputee, I was like, oh, okay, I think I'll be good here. And Bremer Prosthetics is a life changer. I mean, I met Casey, Chris, and Scott all in the Saginaw office. All of them are amputees of different levels and really inspired me to get moving again. I mean, I plan on doing only one with Scott, and I know he'll love to hear this, a triathlon in 26 on my like 10-year anniversary, kind of being an amputee. And
well, good. Maybe he'll stop bugging me then if you do it.
Right. I'm just working on getting a running leg now, but I'm getting back in shape because I had the bariatric sleeve surgery like that lady did, but I lost track of myself when I lost my job, which caused me to grow out of my leg the other way. And for the past 6 months, I've been wearing a leg I'm too big for. And I'm finally got back into insurance and going to get back into a leg where I can actually not be in pain to wear and start losing weight again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, having a good socket fit is absolutely key. And as your body changes, I mean, there are patients that people can fluctuate weight within 30 pounds and their limb stays pretty stable. And there's other people that can fluctuate within 10 pounds and that can affect your limb differently. And so it's a lot easier to make the socket smaller and add pads and adjust with socks and make changes as things are reducing in volume. But when things get bigger, we have a rigid socket. There's not a heck of a lot that we can do to accommodate that. And so getting back into a socket where you're comfortable, you're not getting sores, you don't have the living daylights being squeezed out of you every time you go to put it on, makes a big difference in terms of your function and your mobility and activity level.
Like on my way to work this morning, I had to stop and take my leg off just because the squeeze was so horrible. I mean, it brought tears to my eye. And then, but like when I pump both my knees, like that, like you standardly do. And even right now, I'm halfway through the day, my left knee, which is my amputated leg, is still higher than my other knee just because I'm not sitting in my socket right. I got sores that nobody should have on their stomach just because I'm not fitting my leg properly. I'm not in pain, but I'm not comfortable.
Yeah. All right. Well, I want to keep moving through with some introductions here. So Tracy, could you introduce yourself? Thanks for joining us.
Hi, I'm Tracy. I'm in Greenville, South Carolina. I'm an AK on the right side, and I have not had my 1-year anniversary. My anniversary will be May 25th. So I'm about 9 or 10 months in. I am a super active competitive athlete. And so my challenge is, I think I have I'm a high demand patient when it comes to getting a good socket fit. So I'm right in the process right now of trying to decide if my prosthetist is still the right person for me. I started in a adjustable, a Martin Bionic socket, and that was great. You know, I got really functional in that. I started in a hydraulic knee and then graduated to I got a genium. So I was able to walk quite a long distance in the genium with the Martin Bionic socket. I was doing, 10, 12 miles a day and enjoying that. But I really wanted to be able to run and get back into running. So I have a running blade, and we're in the process of trying to make a ischial containment socket for me. And it's been a long process. I can't seem to get a good fit. I can't seem to get comfortable in it. I'm still in my check socket, and I go for walks in it, and I'll do like a 2 mile walk or a 4 mile walk. And I think my prosthetist hears that, and he's just like, well, 2 miles or 4 miles, that's great. That's awesome. And I don't know how to really get the point across. Like, I'm miserable for those 2 miles or 4 miles. Like, I'm in tears and I hurt, and I do it because I'm an athlete, and I'm like, I've got to push, I've got to push, I've got to get these miles done. But I'm just so miserable. And we've been back and forth with a fit for a long time. I can't even fathom how I'm going to run in this. Like, I'm so excited to have this blade, but it does not even seem like a even far-fetched thought. So that's why, I'm not close to Brimmer at all, but I just love being able to hear from other prosthetists on their thoughts on, how comfortable should a socket be right away. I've heard some people say, like, should be comfortable right away. You shouldn't be going through this long, long learning curve. And then other people are saying, well, it takes a long time to get used to an ischial containment. Whether you even need an ischial containment to be able to run, if some people can run with a subischial. So, like, lots of questions. I'm just a super high demand AK patient. So that's me.
Well, it's different running on a running blade than it is just a regular foot or having 2 feet. Because I used to be big into running, and it was totally different when I started running again. So I used to have at least a 7 foot long running stride. Now it's like 3.5 feet. So it's a big difference running on one of those as opposed to just a regular prosthesis. But I also have a knee, so it's a little different there as well.
I think that's a big challenge for my prosthetist, because he doesn't have any AK runners. So yeah. I'm like a guinea pig for him, I think.
What form of suspension do you use?
So the first socket that I had that I did really well in, that Martin Bionics, that just had a lanyard. But the ischial that they're trying to get me in now is suction.
Okay. Like skin fit, or do you wear a liner?
No, I have a liner.
Okay.
I didn't want to do the skin fit. The volume of my leg changes drastically. I'm also a competitive bodybuilder, so my weight fluctuates. And the thought of the skin fit just being so fitted and not being able to add socks or anything, that kind of scared me.
The fair point. So with that too, with running, there's a couple of different things to consider with socket fit. I know, so between the knee and not, there's people that run at a very competitive level within above knee amputation, that either use a knee or don't. They'll try both ways of just determining on if that knee is going to buckle. I know it's a safety concern for a lot of people that they feel they can trust the prosthesis a lot more. So again, back to that conversation of, that you put your weight down, your weight's going to go through the foot. They still get great energy return. There's a little bit of compensation with that. But it really comes down to personal preference. Dialing in, so going from a more flexible socket to an ischial containment socket, I will say continue to advocate for what's comfortable for you, and continue to advocate for the fit. So there are some where we'll have people come in and they're a pretty quick fit of dialing in the brim, getting a good capture. And there's other ones that as you go through and you learn somebody's limb, that was something that I heard them say to us in school all the time, that, oh, like you'll get to know people and you get to know their limb and this. And I mean, the sockets that I fit that I fit now 5 different sockets for the same person of I'm starting at a different point because I know, okay, we had this issue and this was a trouble spot. We made these adjustments and we worked through this. And so it does take time to dial in a lot of those different issues. Being said, continue to be nitpicky. I have all of my patients that come in. Well, one of the conversations is your job here is to complain. Not many people say that to you in life, but I want you to come in and tell me your complaints. What works, what doesn't, what could be better, where are we missing things? So at the end of the day, this is you and your mobility, and you're the one that has to wear the socket. You're the one that has to use these components. And so making sure that your voice is heard through all of that. And then you're doing the right thing of go through kind of research, look into different areas of, are there other prosthetists in the area that you can go and have a consult with of, is this something that they've worked through before? Have they fit a transfemoral patient that is a runner? What's their experience? How much do they know about this? We're big advocates for people just finding the right prosthetist that fits them and their it's great to build a relationship, but knowing that your voice is also heard and going and having a consult with somebody of, hey, can we just talk through this and see, is this going to be a better fit? Because you want to advocate for yourself and make sure that your needs are being met.
Right.
Totally unrelated thing, but when I did triathlon, something I found for liners when we were switching legs is if you keep one of your liners cold in the ice, like in a cooler with ice, makes a big difference starting the next leg of it. Totally unrelated, but
That's really helpful.
Made a huge difference.
That's really helpful. I have a huge event coming up in November, kind of like a try, except it's no swimming, it's kayaking instead of swimming. So kayaking, cycling, and running, and it's a 4-day event. So I don't know how many miles we cover, a few hundred, I'm sure. But that'll be good to keep in mind. Thanks.
Yep, rubbing alcohol, and I had 3 different liners, one for each leg of the triathlons, and the other 2 were in a cooler. I'd get back, switch my shoes and everything, and dry it off with rubbing alcohol, put on a cold liner, and it made a big difference.
That's good to know. Thank you.
I will say, as far as running resources too, we have put together that if you find the Bremer website, we have like a strength training to running program that's more focused on basically like leg strength, core strength to build up to running, and then also like a progression to running, getting back into it of a place to start. But I know with the concerns of being uncomfortable and even trying to walk for 2 miles, let alone trying to run on something, of dialing in that socket fit is absolutely key. That you need to have a good starting point and a good base before moving to the next step and adding more activity. Because the second that you do that, now you have more forces going through the socket, additional shear. So all of those issues are just going to magnify themselves. So starting in and getting that socket fit dialed in first should be kind of the initial step of, okay, I can walk on this throughout the day. I can go through my normal routine and be comfortable. Now, how do we increase the activity on this, and what adjustments can be made to kind of that home base socket of, do we need to add additional flexibility, add additional security? And Bill just shared the link to that too in the chat here.
Thank you.
The last part for like above the knee runners, a lot of people do like having a belt added on, which I know it's another piece. It can be a little bit warmer. But a lot of people just like that additional security that if you are using like a suction socket, it's just that, okay, I know that even if my leg slips, there's something that's still holding this on, that my legs, I'm not just going to slip out of my leg and my prosthesis isn't there anymore.
Yeah, we ordered a belt for me.
Okay.
So, thing.
So good.
Thanks, guys.
Absolutely.
I think, Joe, you had your hand raised. You want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
So, hi, how you doing? I am from the UK. Unusual accent for you all. Hello, everybody. Hi. I have been researching a lot about legs and what to do and what not to do. So I live near Gatwick Airport. Most of you may know that. So I'm in England, and I'm about to make a decision about having my foot amputated, and I feel that's the right decision. Sorry, I was trying not to start this conversation with a tear.
It's a tough decision. It is.
So in November 2020, I was carrying some blankets down the stairs, waiting for my son to have his little bloody mates hang on to the bloody sofa and have a good old drinking session, which they never had. And I got to the last two steps of the stairs, and I slipped on the last two steps of the stairs, and I trod on a dog ball, a very strong woven roped dog ball, and I fractured my fibula.
Oh.
Which is fine. Most people get a fracture fib within 6 weeks, but no, my local hospital put a plate infected into my leg, which stayed for 5 months. I had 2 PICC lines, so I had IV antibiotics, and I'm now my leg was operated on the 10th of November, and on the 6th of January, after me having constant discussions with my consultant that my leg was infected and full of pus and shit, they decided to wash out my leg and keep the plate in, but they kept the plate in for 5 months. So my talus bone and other parts of my bone are in a really bad place with horrific osteoarthritis. I'm 51. Prior to this, I ran a scouting group in the UK of 25 cubs. I used to do a canoeing group. I run my own successful business, and I'm just like, you know, a hip hop fun person, but it has taken a lot of this out of me because I spend a lot of my time on painkillers, and I've had to wind down my business for some time. I'm now at the point where I have a choice of amputating my foot. The hospital I went to, I've discharged myself from them. Am I talking too much? Can I continue talking, or I'm taking up too much time?
You're good. No, you're good.
Sure. Okay. So the hospital that I was in, I am now discharged from, and I'm now suing them. And the new hospital that I'm in now is 20 minutes away. It's just the next village. And the consultant I left in the hospital that I'm suing said I was too young to have a fusion. They can't offer me a ankle replacement. They can't offer me an up and down fusion or a side to side. They can only offer me a full fusion. And you know what? I just don't want that. I want to have my foot chopped off. And for me, that just seems the best thing to do, because if I have my ankle fused, I can't walk up and down the hill. I can't do canoeing, which I want to do because I've done canoeing all my life. Whitewater canoeing and flatwater canoeing, and the fusion with osteoarthritis, they'll replace the fusion in 10 years' time when I'm 61. And I am meeting going to the hospital in Queen Mary until the 5th of April, where I will meet my prosthetics person who's doing rehabilitation, and I will meet my surgeon on the 25th of April. The following, a few weeks later, I'll meet the plastics. I'll meet the whole 5 guys that are going to work with, hopefully, make a decision. And the reason for me on this call, not to cry, clearly, is to find out how you made decisions. Okay, how you made the decisions. Are you elected? How do you know what leg you want? How do you know what leg you should and shouldn't have. How do you ask someone that's a prosthetics rehabilitation consultant when I meet them on the 5th of April? How do I ask them the questions? What do I do? I don't know any of this, and I don't know where to go. I don't know who to ask. And look, people out there are amputees all over the world, but no one talks to each other. There are hundreds of thousands of people in the southeast of England. There are millions of us, and there isn't one group apart from up in London. Once they just hide away, and I don't understand that. Is it a UK thing? I just don't get it. So
we're less than 1% of the population. Amputees are.
Well,
okay.
Can I just say to Joe that there's two possibly other UK groups you can get involved in. That's the Amputation Foundation and what's the other one that's on tomorrow?
The Amputation Foundation only deal with London up. They're London and North, and I'm at the bottom.
No, I used to be in it online, and I'm in
right.
Devon. I used to
didn't know they did online. Okay, I've just seen things about them doing. We're going to meet at the pub. We're going to do the quiz. We're going to meet, face to face. I've not seen any online at all whatsoever. So I've only seen them meet in people and not do an online thing.
And I'm just trying to think the other one I've had a bit of a falling out with over a stupid thing, really.
That's nice to know, Michael. Well done. Or Mike, whoever you are.
I'm just trying to think, just about me. In November 22, I had a seizure that brought a stroke on. Then I woke up with a new body. I had a lower left leg amputation, and part of my sort of symptoms now are a lack of memory. What's the other one?
Well, that's why you can't remember where you want to go. Nothing doing the dip here, but excuse me for being very obvious on that. Nothing personal, Michael, as I've only just met you.
No. I mean, it has been a bit of a shock to me because I was once a lorry driver. And apart from not allowing my heavy goods license back now for some reason, I'm allowing my car license back, but I'm not allowing my heavy goods license back. I don't know, can't work out why, because in my eyes, you can do just as much damage with a car as you could do in a lorry. Yep. And there's automatic lorries out there, should they stipulate that I can only drive automatics, but I'm allowed to drive manual cars. But hey, that's something I've got to sort out with the DVLA in this country. And oh Christ, for the life of me, it's gone from my memory. I'll remember it 5 minutes after we finish this meeting, because they are generally a nice group and they will sort of speak to you regarding this issue. But going back to myself a bit, when I was 19, 20, on a drunken night out, I fell down this one step in a nightclub and I fractured my ankle badly. And that resulted in me having metal work put in my ankle. And then 30 years later, I started suffering pain, severe pain in that ankle. So I was going to see my GP regularly and was trying all different sort of tablets, and I said, it's not working. And then he sent me for an MRI scan and it come back, the plate is possibly starting to cause the problem. So I started going down the route of, right, be done with it. If I haven't got the leg, I can't have the pain. It'll all be in my head, sort of thing afterwards. So we was in talks, and then my neighbour had to find me on my drive having a seizure, and then I was taken into hospital. And then I woke up, because I was in intensive care for 18 days during that period. I woke up, when I tried to get out to bed to walk to the toilet, and you can imagine how well that went. Last time I knew, I had 2 feet, so I woke up wanting the toilet. So I went, I raised my head off the pillows just about to find out where the toilet was. I tried walking to the toilet. And I ended up in a mess in the floor. Luckily I didn't, not that kind of mess, but I just ended up in a heap in the floor. And the nurse just said, "You ain't got a leg." I said, "Don't be silly. I've had one for 51 years. I said, I've had 2 for 51 years. So she said, "You haven't now?" I said, "Don't be silly." And I remember getting back on the bed. I can't remember whether I was assisted back onto the bed or what. Was sitting on the end of the bed. She said, "You haven't got a leg now." And then settling back down, and whether they topped up my medication so I didn't get out again, I don't know. But next thing I knew, I was waking up on the ward, and I couldn't speak because I had to have a tracheotomy because my oxygen levels dropped off at some point. So they had to give me a tracheotomy. Speaking about an elective amputation, I do agree with it because I wanted it, and it could have saved me a lot of time later on, because I ended up having to see. It's all sort of unknown answers, sort of thing. It can't say that I wouldn't have had the seizure. I can't say I wouldn't have had the stroke, but had they done it when I was asking for it, could have saved a whole lot of time, But
I think the time thing is the factor is that because I am not wanting to, I am a goer. I'm sick of sitting around, sick of being in a freaking wheelchair, sick of taking painkillers and cocodamol at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and doing absolutely frickle for the next 5 hours, 7 hours. I struggle to be that person. I don't want to be that person. And it's very hard to explain to people that I'd like my foot chopped off. And it'd be good to hear from the team with you guys or Mary, but it's just so fucking hard to say to people. My dad's in the next room behind me. He does not understand why I want my foot chopped off. He just does not get it.
Well, I've had this conversation with people, and especially sort of family and friends. I said, well, when you're living in that pain, then you can make that decision. But until then, just accept it that I'm doing it for the best reasons.
I think, can I just say one thing?
Hi, Mary.
I'm so sorry. First of all, I'm so sorry for what you're going through. Breaking my heart. I wish you lived in the States. But my own personal opinion, and please, this is my personal opinion. I had to choose, after my spider bite, the infection was so bad, that they said to me, well, you're not going to have any muscle left in your leg because the bacteria just ate it up. And they could sew me up and I'd have a little dangly thing. And I thought to myself, I'm very active too. I'm older than you are, but I was 61 when I had my leg amputated. I'm 67 now. And it's taking me a few years to get moving for different reasons, not just because of the socket. I'm an above knee. The one thing that I wish I would have really done is basically what you're doing right now. Is before, only mine was more of an emergency, but I made the decision quickly, and I don't regret it because I probably would have died. But I wish I hadn't had the dream in my brain of me just putting on a socket and walking, because that's basically what they led me to believe that was going to happen. In hindsight, I would still do the same thing, but I would make sure that I had everything lined up and talk to other amputees who are going to have who had the same type of amputation. I don't know if you'll be below knee or not, but
I'll be below knee.
You'll be below knee?
Yeah.
Okay. So I would talk to below knees because they would give you the best information. But I would want to know, like, how long it took them. What did they experience? The difference between having the fusion and having the amputation. I would weigh everything, and not saying not to do it. Believe me, I'm an advocate for, if it's not working, get rid of it. But I would also say to you, just get as much information as you can, and a good prosthetist and a good doctor who's going to listen to you. You're obviously very active. So was I. I did barrel racing with horses and water skied, and I did everything. I'm an artist, which thank God I am, because that helped me get through it. But I think that your choice has to be what you feel inside you and nobody else's. But I would talk to as many people as you can, including these people at Bremer, to get full disclosure on what is involved, what's going to be the experience after the surgery, how long approximately, and everybody's different, but what could you expect? The different changes of socket, the different sockets, all those types of things. I would just keep questioning. I wish I would have known then to do that. So that's all I'm saying. And I wish you so much love and health and good wishes. And I know that whatever decision you make is going to be the right one for you.
Thank you.
Which my ankle was fused, and I also had 6 screws holding mine together before I chose to get it amputated. The biggest thing was finding, like, Abby and Cassie, a good prosthetist who, listens, and you have good lines of communication with it. I'm glad I had mine amputated. That's my personal thing, because I was very active. I still am. I still water skied with the prosthesis and other things, but it's a tough decision. It is, but I went through, my ankle was fused. I only had 2 degrees of movement in my ankle that I could do, and then they put 6 screws in it, and it became a game of, we could try this or this, and it might work, it might not, and I just told them to amputate it, and for me, it ended up working out as the best decision.
That's awesome.
It's a tough decision, but it was
a hard decision.
It was positive. It was a positive one. Finding a good process was the best thing for it too.
And I'd say thank you everybody for contributing to this. And Joe, thanks for sharing your story and where you're at. This is one of the biggest reasons that we host these groups, is to connect people and talk through of people that have been where you've been and trying to make those decisions and sharing their stories. There's a lot of good questions that are coming up. And one of them, like you were asking about how do things attach? What different foot should I have? What type of socket should I have? And when you're meeting with your prosthetist, one of the things that I firmly believe in is that they should be able to justify why this is the best solution for you, given the information, your current level of rehabilitation, so that they can go through. And if you're like, hey, somebody told me about this vacuum suspension, why are we not doing that for my leg? And they can go through and say, well, you're a newer amputee, like we want things to heal up. So that they can you can come to these groups and gather information and then take them back to your prosthetist and ask them about other options. But ultimately they should be able to have the conversation with you of, here's kind of these other things of where you're at and why this is a good solution for you. Or, hey, if that's something that you're interested in, we can try that. Just to be able to have that open conversation at any point in the process. And I give you a lot of credit for reaching out and finding groups like this and joining the call today, to try and get information. Because there's a long road ahead of, what does this realistically look like? What does the healing process look like? What are my goals? And Mary, like you had touched on, which I appreciate, I think a lot of people have that perspective of, I'm going to go in, I'm going to be fit with a prosthesis. It's going to be a wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. And I'm going to be back on with my life. but
Yeah.
there's a lot of rehabilitation and a lot of hard work that goes into that process. And to frame it for most of the people that we work with, of giving them the mindset of, it's going to take about 2 years to optimize your mobility on your prosthesis. That doesn't mean it's going to take 2 years to walk, or it's
Right.
going to take 2 years to going back and doing the activities that you love to do. It means that in 2 years, you'll be at a point where you put your prosthesis on and you kind of go about your day, and you're not as focused on, oh my gosh, there's a curb here, or I'm going to this place. Are there steps? Is there a ramp? Do I have to traverse this? You can just kind of go about your day. In that 2 years, so physical therapy is super helpful. Staying up on the fit of your socket, there's a huge learning process of, how do I adjust volume? How do I work with this? And just finding a prosthetist that you can ask questions with, that they can kind of talk to you through this, and joining groups like this and other conversations, or whether it's a Facebook group, of connecting with other amputees, so that you can also address of, hey, I'm having this issue, and where's everybody else at? That there's networks out there for a reason, because amputees are a small percentage of the population. And so they're not all hiding under rocks. It's just everybody's in the same position of, I don't know how to find the right people. And so the more groups that you can find and become engaged with and ask questions, everybody is in the same boat, that they're looking to help, or they've had people that have helped them, and they want to be able to help others move forward too.
It's true.
Awesome.
So we hope you join us again next month too, and keep coming back, and find other groups to ask questions with and talk through things. And if there's ever anything that comes up too, of submitting us a question or sending an email, that we're not in the UK, so healthcare does look a little bit different, but we are happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Lovely meeting you all.
Yeah,
Wow.
you as well. So we have a few
That's
other people. We will stay on a little bit past our 5 o'clock, just to allow everybody to introduce themselves. So I want to kind of keep going through here. So Sandra, I saw that you joined us. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, and if you have any questions for the group.
Hey, I did. I actually saw you guys on live, and I was listening to Joe talk about her kind of dilemma of what to do, and how people look at you when you're like you're crazy, when you're like, I just want to cut it off. I just had my amputation in December after 7 ankle surgeries from a trimalleolar fracture. I had a fusion. I ended up being allergic to all of the hardware they put in me both times. So ultimately my option was to take the hardware out, see if it fused and how I did, or to just take it off. And after 3 years and 7 surgeries, I just said, I'm done. But I definitely had the thought of, I'm going to put my prosthetic on and I'm going to walk because I'm capable. And after 2 weeks with it and multiple appointments trying to get it adjusted, I'm definitely thankful that you said that, because it makes me feel less, what is wrong with me and why can't I make this work? And I don't have she's a great prosthetist, but her communication with me in that regard was 0. So I'm really glad I joined. And 2 weeks, almost 3 weeks in my prosthetic, I am doing well, and in physical therapy. So I'm super glad.
I won't work for 12 years and I still get days where I don't know what I'm doing.
Okay.
And having that, I mean, we explicitly tell patients, I do not want you to leave the office and wear this all day the first day. I don't want you to go and walk a mile in this, that there is a break in periods that your limb can start to acclimate. Any small problems, stay small problems. You don't wear it for a full 8-10 hours, and then all of a sudden there's a giant blister on your limb. There should be a break in period. And then again, it takes about that 2 years to get to a point where you can go about your day. Being in physical therapy is a huge step too. That's incredibly helpful. We're huge advocates for physical therapy. And then just continuing to advocate for yourself of, like you said, of, I feel like not wanting to feel like you're not putting in the work. That I always try to give patients the mindset of, if you come in, like, yes, it's not going to walk for you, but we need to do what we can to have this work with you. Of, it's not, I need to make this work. I need to, like, if you find that there's things that you're doing or that are uncomfortable, or, hey, I have to shift my weight a certain way and this is more comfortable. If you can relay that to your prosthetist, finding that initial common language can be very challenging, because you don't know exactly what you're feeling or how to relay that information to them in a way that makes sense. And we're trying to decipher that, of trying to figure out, and we've heard a lot of different ways that people describe different sensations, different feelings coming over the toe. Of, it's trying to coach people through developing that common language, but also getting to a point where the prosthesis is built for you and working with you, right? So not putting you in something where it's working against you and you have to overcome all of these barriers. Of, it takes time to dial that in, and adjustments and figuring out the right componentry and all of that. But ultimately trying to make something that fits you and works for you.
Perfect. That's definitely helpful. Thank you for that. I usually just show up with all my moleskin stickers on, and I'm like, look, it hurts here, 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 and here. And this is not
that's a good way to go about it.
So
a question I have is that, you know what, I'm meeting 3 elected amputees in the next 2 weeks, because I am a very anal about research and straight lines and black and white, blah, blah, blah. When it comes to things that are really important.
I love you.
And, what did you just say?
I love you. You're great.
Well, I'm also, it's just, and I know I can't sew it back on. So, you know, it's an important choice, right? But for me, it's about, you know, my future and about my life and about how I'm going to live my life and how I'm going to bounce around. So I want to ask them about the phantom pain. Apparently there's a thing called TMR, where they put your nerves back into your muscles so you don't get the phantom pain, so it's not so ferocious. And that's now only happened over the last few years, which I'm going to be asking the guys when I see them next month. So my worst day is every day, and it's been like this for months and months and months, with regards to cocodamol and all that shit that goes on, constipation, and, you know, let's move on, let's just not move on, or let's just talk about poo. But whatever, the fact is, it's just hard work, right? I just would like to know, if you are an elected amputee, how do you make that freaking decision? How do you decide you're making that right decision? Where, I know everyone says it's the best decision I've ever made. But how do you get from the best decision you've ever made, which is the end, which is the crossing line, to that crossing line? How do you get there? It's such a long road, right? How do you end up at that result? How do you do that?
I think you're doing things. You're asking the right questions. You're talking to the right people. You have to advocate for yourself to get there, and you're going to get there. I can tell. Like, it's going to be a hard process, but I think that if you get the right team behind you, you're going to be just fine.
And that's as you're going through and talking to that team, of making sure that you feel heard, that your questions are answered, that they're addressing all of your concerns, of making sure like you're feeling listened to. And if that person isn't meeting your needs, of, okay, is there somebody else that you can bring into that team and see if you have a better connection with? Especially, like you said, you can't sew the leg back on. This is a lifelong process. So finding a good prosthetist is a big piece of that puzzle, of connecting with somebody that's always there to advocate with you, so that you are meeting where you expect your mobility to be, but setting like within those reasonable expectations of, okay, I want to be here. What is a reasonable timeline to get there? And what work do I have to put in? How can physical therapy help? What should I be doing at home? But as far as like, even with surgery, of talking to the surgeon and different options, and if they, what are their thoughts on, it's like, there's a couple of different variations of how they tie the nerves into the muscle belly. Yeah, or an Erdl procedure of if they build like a bony bridge between the tibia and fibula, of just going through and addressing that with the surgeon. And you have the opportunity to help have a voice in the surgical plan and asking these questions of, hey, I've been talking to people and they said that this helped with like phantom, like with the nerve integration. So there's TMR and like RPNI. So like between those of going to the surgeon and, hey, I've been talking to people, what do you think about these options? Is this something that we can integrate into my plan? So that you have a voice, because a lot of this, it's more of it's a traumatic experience, or it's something that's made pretty quickly. And so they're trying to just make sure that the limb ends up in a good condition. And there's not as much time to go through and like make a solid plan. So being able to have a voice in that procedure too, and just you're asking all of the right questions, gathering all of the information, make sure like write a list down in a notebook when you go into appointments, and just so you don't get there and then all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, I know I had so many questions. And the second that they shut the door and walk out of the appointment, you're like, oh, and they all come flooding back to me. Come prepared with your questions, and the right care team is going to be more than happy to answer them.
Just to interrupt you quickly, you said, I know about TMR, but what was the other abbreviation you mentioned?
RPNI.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
And then the Erdl procedure too, which is where they kind of build like a bony bridge between the two bones.
Okay. How do you spell that? How do you spell that, please? What you just said?
ERTL.
Oh. Okay, thank you.
And then you might also want to like talk to them about length. The length of the limb actually plays a big role in your care afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
If a lot of surgeons, well, not a lot, but some surgeons think keeping the longest limb possible is better, when it's not necessarily better, because then that limits the different prosthetic feet that you're able to use. So you want a limb that is probably like middle of your calf, like, so it's long enough to be fit, but not too long that you're not able to get like the prosthetic feet that you want. And then you don't want it too short, because then your knee stability
Yeah.
is hard. So preserve enough length, but not too much length.
Thank you. Thank you, lovely. I've got to write it down. Thank you.
Awesome. We do want to get through and kind of have everybody jump in here. Taylor, I did see your comment in the chat, that Joe Taylor had reached out, and let me see here, mentioned she's been a below knee amputee for almost a year and would be more than happy to connect.
Yes.
So Taylor, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
Okay. Can you guys hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Hi, my name is Taylor. I am a right below knee amputee. I lost my leg on April 24th of last year to Ewing sarcoma. So I guess I technically was an elective amputee because they did give me a limb salvage option, but the chance of reoccurrence was so high, I chose to amputate. And I had the RNPI procedure done because when they sorry, my dog's barking. Let me shut the door. When they tried to do TMR, but they just couldn't find a good motor nerve. And Joe, I have no phantom pain and I am almost a year out. So that's a really good procedure to look into. I definitely recommend TMR or the RNPI. I definitely had some phantom pain the first couple months post-op just because it takes a bit for the nerves to kind of grow into the muscle. But now I am working full-time as an operating room nurse and pretty much living my life just as I was before cancer. So it was hard, definitely, to make that decision, but I don't regret my decision. And I definitely, my situation's different because I wasn't in pain before, but I pretty much do everything that I want to. So if you have any questions, you can reach me on Facebook. I put my full name in the chat, and I would love to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. I don't know where the chat is, but thank you anyway. Much appreciated.
I know it's a really hard decision and it's so overwhelming. That's exactly how I felt too. And I was in the middle of chemo and making all of these decisions really quick, but you will figure it out. And if you get a good prosthetist and a good doctor, good surgeons, they'll really help you make an informed decision too. So
thank you. It feels very lonely sometimes, but thank you very much indeed.
I know exactly how you feel. I felt the same way, but it'll get much better. And you will get back to you. I promise. So.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for jumping on, Taylor, too. We appreciate having you here and making all of these connections for people. So, Franz, I know we've seen you around a couple of times. Could you introduce yourself too?
Yeah, yes, I'm Franz Lepla, 73 years old. I lost my limb left below the knee to a blood clot 7 years ago. I was walking 7 miles that day because I like to walk. And now I walk 4. It will take, after an amputation, with 3 months, you should be walking without any problem at all. I mean, theoretically. So I did not, since it was done, my amputation was done while I spent 8 days in the hospital. And then when I woke up, the leg was gone. So I didn't make any of the choices of how it was done. I didn't have phantom pain. I never have had phantom pain. I have pain in my residual limb because that small bone, they got 2 bones in there, and it moves in behind your other bone. And there's a lot of pain with that as your calf muscle atrophies. So that Ertl procedure, I wish I could have had that done because they're going to throw that leg away. So they got plenty of bone there to work with. I mean, let's salvage some of that instead of letting it just turn blue. I wish my leg was longer, but the physician that took my leg had never done one before. So it was kind of, I've got just a hand's width below my knee joint. That's it. And it was actually my ankle that wouldn't take any blood. It wouldn't drink because it had blood clot in it. So I had I had a longer limb, that would give me more leverage, which would make me walk a little better. Yes, you can get a new limb, a new prosthetic top every 6 months or more if you have a problem. And a lot of amputees I've found in the last 7 years, they wait too long or they don't want to bother. You gotta bother. You gotta work for yourself because nobody else knows what it feels like except you. You can take your limb off and they can witness red spots on it or something, but you know where the pain's at. And it's best to know ahead of time. Sometimes I'll go on a hike and I'll get a couple miles from camp and then I'll feel a blister coming. When you feel a blister coming, it's too late. But I always carry extra socks with me and things that I can use. And I'll take my limb off and just sit down on a stump for 40 minutes and let everything air out and let me calm down. And then I'll go back to work at it. I was walking probably 3 miles within the first year. And that goes in stages. I mean, you'll take off and I'll walk 100 yards and go back home. I walked in the first 2 years, I would sometimes walk too far and I had to call somebody to come and get me. I'm not going to hurt myself. So it's easier to me to dial up somebody and have them. Now I walk with an 89-pound dog also, which gives me an excuse and she makes me walk. And I think, I'm 6'4", 225 pounds, and that scares some people. But if I'm walking with a dog, they're not so scared. So, well, that's the world we live in. When they see people walking around by themselves, they always right away think that they're, what they call it, stranger danger. But with a dog, then you're okay. So now I would get another dog, and I will get another dog when she's 11 now. So I will get another dog. I hike. I've got an RV. I'm retired, so I do everything I would do except water scares me. So I got rid of my boat. I kept a canoe, but I got rid of my boat because I'm just kind of afraid of water. If you're not diabetic, your recovery will be much easier and better because you can feel things are happening with your limb, and I really like that. If I've met people that are diabetic that can't feel it, and they take their limb off and then they witness the damage done. So.
So Franz, there's two things that you brought up that I think are good to address too. And one is the frequency of how often can you get like a new socket, can you get new components? And then two, of how things kind of come in waves. So a lot of that, as your limb stabilizes in volume kind of after amputation, that when there's a change, if the socket's not fitting appropriately and there is a physiological change in your limb showing that things are not quite measuring the same, they don't look the same, there's atrophy, there's been muscle growth, there's whatever the reason, that you can justify needing a new prosthetic socket. But two, like with that activity coming in waves, that if you notice that, hey, I feel less active than I used to be because there's these small things that start to bother me at the end of the day. So I notice like I'm grabbing a shopping cart when I go to the grocery store. I'm relying on this a little bit more, or I might change my plans towards the end of the day because I want to go home and be able to be off of my feet. That as you're going through with the socket fit of your prosthesis, the part that goes on your limb is incredibly important. And as that starts to not be as comfortable, then it can affect your mobility and your activity level. And there's times where people will come in and we might make a little adjustment, and the next day or two, they might know, hey, that wasn't quite right. Hey, I need a little bit more. That just because it felt okay leaving the office and it was an improvement does not mean that it's going to be a lasting improvement. Mary, I see you shaking your head because I'm sure you've been there, and I'm sure that a lot of you have been there. And I always tell people that, hey, if you walk out and you notice like the next day or two, like, yeah, maybe give it a try and see if it helps, that it might take a day or two, but you get to know your limb and you can tell yeah, this wasn't quite right, or we didn't quite get it. That don't hesitate to reach out to your prosthetist too and say, hey, we still need to dial this in a little bit more.
For me, that's really good information, because the place I'm going to is, say, Queen Mary in Roehampton and St George's in the UK, and they are renowned to be the best limb amputation hospital throughout the UK. And their engineering room, which they call the engineering room, is just absolutely freaking amazing. The stuff they do, how they reach out, is absolutely fantastic. And it seems like within the UK, all limb centres to all hospitals are run individually. So a lady I'm going to meet next week, she is with a limb centre only half an hour away, and she only gets a chance to have one limb. And she's had that one limb, that one type of limb, because her socket has decreased within liquid over maybe 2 or 3 years. But she wants a limb that moves because she can do weight training. And I want a limb because I want to go canoeing. I want to jump in the water. I want to be out swimming, doing stuff. But she doesn't have that at her limb centre. So as much as mine is, an hour and a half, 2 hours away, I'm hoping, because I'm going to a really big hospital, that they'll be able to do the same. But it's the questions of what to ask when I meet the guys on the 5th of April, because I've never needed a limb. How do you know what to ask of what limb you need and what you can do and what you can't do? So I'm hoping they'll have those questions. But I will not be putting up with a bit of like for the next few days. I will be on the phone saying, actually, this doesn't work. So because why would you not? You could die tomorrow. Why not live for today and tomorrow,
Right. Yep. Right. And bringing those questions of having an idea of, okay, these are the things that I want to be able to do with my prosthesis. I want to continue being in and around the water and going kayaking and going canoeing and doing these things of, what does that process look like and what can we do to be able to do that? And Michael, it looks like you have something to add to that too.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Can we have you on? Did you have something to add if you unmute yourself?
Yeah, it's just for Joe. That group that I was thinking, they'll be online tomorrow morning. It's called Still Bones, and I totally agree with like the fit of your socket, because touch wood, the centre I go to and the guy I see, you know, he asked me what I want, and my next time is next month. I go there, and then we spend the rest of the time talking about films, because I go to the cinema a lot. You know, I've got total faith in him, and I'm just in that grey area where I don't know whether in your country we've had it. We had a walk a kilometre a day for the oh, mum's suffering with it. Oh God, it's gone. Dementia charity, and I was walking around a large lake, which is about 5 kilometres. I was doing that each day in February, and I think I've overdone it because I'm wearing every sock I've got, and now this time of night, my knee's gone well past where it should do.
Well,
So,
do you know what? It's probably a bit wet and muddy because we've had loads of shit rain. We've had the highest rainfall in February in the whole of the UK for the last like forever day of Earth before Adam and Eve. So, you know, what can I say?
Yeah. I mean, like the first prosthetic meeting I had, I was asked, what do I intend doing? And one of my big hobbies, I don't know whether you can see on my t-shirt, there's a carp. There's a carp on my t-shirt. So I'm a big
are you a fly fisherman or not a fly fisherman?
No. I'm a carp fisherman. I specialise in carp. And so it was a case of I want to be able to walk over rough ground, boggy ground sort of thing when it's wet, and that. And we had an half hour just talking about the use I want out of it. So it's, you know, that's just the centre. I don't know whether it's different all over, but the centre I go to just seems to be top notch. You know, I can't say enough about them.
That's good. You know? That's really good. I've heard lots about other centres, and I've heard the one I want to go to is absolutely the bee's knees. But there's also one in Portsmouth where there's lots of people that are army related to have a really good funding. So I don't care where I travel to. I just want a red trainer. That's all I'm asking for, or whatever, a foot. I don't know which way they come in.
Well, it's the Exeter Mobility Centre I go to,
right,
and that's 40 minutes an hour away from me. And I'll just say the two guys, Lorne and I think it's Sean, if I remember rightly. Sean's the physio and Lorne's the guy that does all the fitment sort of thing, casting and that. And it should be me 2 appointments in April that I get sort of the final leg that I'm going down to, because since November 22 I've been continually shrinking. So I've had 2 sockets in between where I've had to go back and they put padding in, so you know, to save making another socket, then another socket, they can put padding inside them. And so my appointment letter is saying a cast and a scan, where I don't know what entails by the scan of the what's left, the residual limb stump, whatever you want to call it. you know, how they go about scanning it. Do they get you to just put it on a photocopier and job done, sort of thing? You know, it's it's going to be interesting to see, when it happens. But and as I say, talking to Sean about films, I've lent in some of my DVDs of some films I've got, because we share an interest in films, sort of thing. And so just having the guy, and getting back to what was said earlier, communicate with them, just tell them everything. Because when I first got the leg, January this year, no, last year, January last year, it just felt a shade too tall. So when I stood in it, it just felt totally unnatural. And then when I went and saw him, and I just said, it don't feel right. It just feels like my hips are out of line. So we had a chat, and he took a smidgen off of it, and ever since it's felt totally right. So, and then they've said, we like seeing you because you do communicate what's going on, sort of thing. So don't be frightened to tell them the smallest thing, because it could be the most useful thing. And the hardest question I've had to answer, because it's in my medical notes, is that I was asking for an elective amputation, and they said, why did you want that? And I just said, well, I was in pain from the moment I got up and started walking on it around the house. And seeing as the job I had was quite a physical job all day, and then I was dosing myself up on medication at night to go to bed, and then it would start again the next day. So I said, it gets to a point where enough is enough. Just get it gone. Just get it gone. Be the answer. In my eyes, it was. And, I've not looked back, put it that way. And I suppose, November 22 to now, I've just started to get back the aching in the ankle feeling that I had before. I've just started getting that back. So that's in my head, and I've just got to train my head that it can't be a pain, because it's not there. So it's one of those things. It's my mind playing tricks on me.
So we also had Floyd jump in here at the end. So Floyd, we'd love to have you kind of introduce yourself and join the discussion here.
Well, thank you. I'm here.
So if you could share a little bit about where you're from, kind of your history, how long you've been an amputee, and what level.
Okay, yeah. I'm a hip disc tech. I'm about 5 years out. And I have a socket and a leg that I wear, but it irritates my skin, so I'm needing a new socket.
Have you, and I saw, so it looks like you're down in Alabama.
Yes.
And you're having some issues finding prosthetists in the area with that level of amputation.
That's right.
So the socket that you have now, are you going to the same place and it was just you were one of their first patients, or had you gone somewhere else before, traveled?
I traveled one time about 10 hours to the first socket I had, and it lasted a little while, and I decided to try someone else, and I travel about 10 hours again to someone else. And that's the socket that I currently have now.
Mm-hmm. And so it's going well until things kind of changed shape a little bit and it stopped fitting well. Is that my understanding?
No, it's always on my ischium bone where I bear weight. I hear that's a common problem with hip dysarthritis. So that's been the problem since I had this socket.
Gotcha. I can say that it's a common problem. We have a couple hip dysarthritic patients in our office, and it's one that trying to support the pelvis and support as much weight with keeping it off of that ischium, off of your sit bone. So for the transfemoral amputees here above the knee amputees, it's that same spot where you take a lot of weight in the socket, right, of that on the back of that sit bone, of trying to make sure you have enough support and control without putting too much pressure there that you end up with skin breakdown and sores and things that are hard to heal over time. So whereabouts is Mobile, Alabama? Because I do have a couple of friends down there that, again, I'm not sure. How far is that from like the Montgomery area? Is that a drive?
It's probably about, let's see, 2.5 hours.
Okay,
drive.
so a little bit more doable than 10 hours.
Right.
But are you looking for something a little bit closer to home?
Yes, I am. Well, I mean, as close as I can possibly get.
Sure. So if you can, let me reach out to my friend that's in the Montgomery area and see if I can talk to her and get some connections for you. And I'll follow up with an email by the end of the week and reach out to you, because we should have everybody's emails from the Sign It, correct?
Possibly, yes, Bill.
Okay. I should be able to get in touch with you. Or if you have your email that you can send to us at info@Bremer Prosthetics afterwards, I'll make sure and we can connect from there.
Okay, wonderful.
But
Thank you so much.
Yes, I would be more than happy to try and find another resource in the area. And I know I would trust her of reaching out to her, of seeing if she knows anybody else, or if they have an office that they could have somebody maybe come down for fittings or stuff like that. So no promises, but hopefully a little bit more information to help you out.
I understand. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Bye.
Any other questions Oh, nice connection there, Mary.
Yeah, right. I loved it there.
So any other questions, conversations, tips before we wrap up here today?
I would say one thing to Joe, and that is that I use the pin system, and usually they try to put you in like an air system, but then I couldn't kneel down because a vacuum system is what I'm talking about. So you might want to make that choice or ask people about that. I use the pin system because I'm really active and I want to be able to kneel down. I found that when I was using the vacuum system, if I knelt down, I would cut that outer vacuum. You have to have a seal, and I would cut that seal. So, you know, your suspension system is going to be real important to you. And I wouldn't get a foot that articulates to start out with. That'll come later, about 3 years. You get something simple and use it really often and really well, and you'll wear a foot out in 3 years and a shell and everything. So good luck.
What does pin system mean? What's that? How do I Google? Just PIN system.
Have a look on YouTube and put pin lock in. There's plenty of amputees done videos regarding suspension fittings.
What do I put in YouTube? Say again for me, please.
Pin lock. P-I-N. Yeah, pin lock.
Pin lock prosthesis.
The best one I would look out for is Footless Joe. She's in,
Footless.
Yeah, Footless Joe. She's in America. I forget what part because she's just recently moved. And
okay,
she does quite regularly.
Okay, thank you. I'll Google those tomorrow. Thank you.
And with the suspension, there's things that we love these conversations because it allows you to see what other people have, why they like what they have. And then you can go back to your prosthetist and have the conversation of, again, hey, I was talking to somebody, they really love this system. What do you think about this? Of like Franz with you saying that you kneel down a lot and it's difficult that the second you get a hole in the suspension sleeve for suction or vacuum, then that system doesn't work as well as it could because there's now air coming in. So there's more movement in the socket. So all of the benefits are, all right, if you're kneeling down, you're getting a hole in your sleeve once a week. It makes it very frustrating in order to maintain like a secure fit. But in terms of like limb shape, your limb conditions, like if you're still healing shortly after amputation, if you're expecting like a significant change in volume, that there's a lot of different things too that your prosthetist is going to consider. So just being able to have that conversation, and if there's a system that works well for you and then they try something different and you're like, you know, I really liked this other one, can we go back to that? Of again, just having those honest conversations with the prosthetist of, you know, I'd like to try this, or can we talk about this? Or somebody else was telling me about this, and just opening up that conversation and asking questions.
Awesome. I'm seeing my guys on the 5th of April. So I will, I'll do loads of research. So yeah, thank you everybody for giving me all the input. Really much appreciated.
Yeah. And thank you everybody for a wonderful conversation today too. We had a lot of good discussion. I think a lot of wonderful connections, and we look forward to seeing you all again next month.
Yeah, thank you.
You guys are great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.